Hi everybody, it's Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. This is The Social Contract, defined and demolished in less than 5 minutes. The social contract is the idea that citizens who live in a country must obey their government. And if you remain in that country, the love it or leave it situation, you remain in that country and you have the right to vote ideally, this constitutes a form of voluntary contract between a citizen and his or her government. Thus the social contract is geographical or country specific, unilateral, state to citizen, in terms of taxation and laws, not citizen to state, and it is implicit. You do not sign it. It is not a formal agreement like a mortgage or something like that. Now, any methodology which claims validity must itself be subject to its own constraints. No one is above the law. The scientific method, as compared to something like religious revelation, must itself be subject to the scientific method. We compare the results of the scientific method to other forms of, quote, knowledge. Logic and evidence must themselves be subject to logic and evidence in the form of reality and consistency. And atheism cannot claim as its own justification or truth the fact that God told an atheist that there was no God. That would be a rank contradiction. The government proposes itself as the highest and sole agency of justice in the land. The government claims that its justification is the social contract. Thus the social contract must be the highest and most moral contract in existence, since it's the root of all other contracts that are enforced by the state. Thus the opposite of the social contract must be unjust and immoral. This is just basic logic. If A is just, anti or the opposite of A must be unjust. The social contract, as mentioned, is geographical, unilateral, and implicit. Thus all contracts that fulfill these obligations must also be just if the social contract is just. So, for example, let's have a look at the social contract car dealership. So I send a letter to every household in a 10-block radius telling the occupants that I have bought a car on their behalf, that they can choose a Volvo or BMW if they want. If they don't choose, I'm just going to send whatever the majority chooses. The car's delivered to them. Next week, the car cannot be returned. I'm enclosing a bill for $30,000. If they don't want the car, no problem. All they have to do is move to another neighborhood where they will have to choose another car. So let's say I bring this contract for my social contract car dealership to the government and ask them to enforce it. What will the court's response be? Well, they'll call me insane and they will laugh me out of the court. If I then take a gun and say, well, I'm going to go and pick up this $30,000 that these people owe me, I'm considered a moral aggressor. I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to spend years and years in jail. Yet I am perfectly fulfilling the requirements of the social contract. It's geographical, it's unilateral, and it is implicit. Since the government claims, as its justification, the universal validity of the social contract, but will attack as evil and unjust anyone who attempts to enforce an identical contract, the social contract is thus considered to be the highest moral good in terms of the government's justification and the greatest moral evil simultaneously. Now, if the social contract is the highest moral good, then the government should defend it for everyone. But the government does the opposite. The government attacks competing social contracts, therefore it is evil. If the social contract is the greatest evil, then the government is by definition evil, since that is what it claims as the justification for its power. But perhaps we can amend the social contract to say, well, no geographical overlapping. It doesn't work. The governments call geographically overlapping social contracts morally good, fed, local, municipal, and so on. Perhaps we say social contracts only apply to governments, but by definition the social contract, to be valid, must apply to everyone, especially the poor sap taxpayers. Now, if the social contract were to apply to everyone, everyone could create and enforce a social contract. Well, the government would say, my social contract allows me to send you a bill for 10 grand for taxes, and I say, okay, I'm going to send you back through my social contract a bill for 10 grand. Nothing is achieved. It all cancels out. Therefore, the social contract is only possible if it is the highest good and the greatest evil simultaneously. Good for government, evil for me. If it's morally good for person A to impose the social contract on person B, but morally evil to do the reverse. Thus, exactly to the degree that the social contract is morally good, the government is morally evil for attacking competing impositions of a universally good moral contract. Exactly to the degree that the social contract is morally evil, the government is morally evil, since that is what it uses to justify its own violent power. Thus, the social contract utterly and completely and totally invalidates the social contract. Thank you very much. 20 seconds to go. This is from my free book, Everyday Anarchy, which you can pick up at my website, www.freedomainradio.com/free. Thank you so much for watching and or listening, and I still have some time to spare, but we'll finish early, shockingly enough, and I will talk to you soon.